Hi there, here is Christina from Changing Parenting. And one of the things I always say, and I almost always get the backlash from this, is when I say well behaved children have something that needs help. There's something there that is not okay and they need help. And I was a very well behaved child. So I speak from this not only from being a positive parent educator, from all the research I know from ages 3 to 6, but also from personal experience, right? I'm a well behaved child myself. So I can assure you that what you want is not a very well behaved child. And I'm going to tell you why. First of all, testing limits is a very normal thing. It's a healthy part of development. And especially in ages 3 to 6, this is the age where they are testing their limits, they are asserting their independence. So if your child does not impose boundaries, does not try and test your limits, there's something wrong. Probably they are afraid of what will happen if they do that, or they don't have the self-confidence to do that. So I'm going to tell you all the reasons why you don't want a well-behaved child. So as I said, compliance and obedience is not what parenting is about, right? It might seem to you that what you want is your child to comply and obey to you, but that's not what you want, because if they are doing this out of fear, out of anxiety. It means they are afraid of upsetting you. It means that they are suppressing their emotions. They are, this again. It's always like this. When you suppress your emotions because you are afraid of what will happen if you express these emotions, one of two things will happen. Either you implode or you explode, right? Either you explode one day by expressing those emotions in a really unhealthy way, by rage or whatever, or you will implode, you will have deal with depression, self-worth issues, all those things, right? So it's okay, it's normal for your child to test your limits. This is normal, healthy behavior. Also, if your child is always very well behaved and they don't know how to impose their boundaries and they don't learn that, right? Because it's your job as parent to teach them that it's okay to say no also sometimes, right? That it's not just about what you as a parent want, it's also about what they want as a child, because they are also human and they also have wants and needs. And in a society we do problem solving and try and find a way that is good for everyone, right? And that they are also entitled to have solutions that are also okay for them, right? So as they grow, they are able to impose those boundaries also in a healthy way, so that they are prioritizing their well-being as well as other people's well-being, and not just living up to other people's expectations of them, right? Because we all know what happens when we live our whole life according to other people's expectations. We are not happy when we grow, right? We turn into unhealthy behaviors to deal with our anxiety, with our feelings of lack of self-worth, things like that. People-pleasing behavior, this is also a big problem. Children that are always very obedient, they are very worried about what other people think of them, right? Did I upset mommy? Did I upset daddy? They become very, very vulnerable to peer pressure and manipulation, right? They don't know how to say no or to stand up for themselves. Again, they didn't learn how to set boundaries. They didn't learn that their needs are also important. Fear of disapproval leads to perfectionism. This is another big problem. Many of us deal with this because we grew up being very well-behaved kids. We attached our self-worth to this idea of perfectionist, being the best student, being this, being that, being the fulfilling other people's expectations for us. So the moment that we fail, and our definition of failure is very, very high, right? It's like we have such high demands for ourselves. We demand so much of us that even like, I don't know, I remember one time we had like these notes from zero, these grades from 0 to 20, and I remember one time that I had a 16, and I thought, like, I am the dumbest person, how could this have happened to me? Which now in retrospective, as in my 40s, it's so silly, right? But in that moment it felt like my whole world was shattering, because I felt like my worth was not good enough. I was not good enough because I was not being perfect. And many of us, we grew up with this and we continue this throughout our whole lives. And especially as a mom, this is something that so many moms deal with. This fear of not being perfect, not making the perfect organic cake for the kindergarten sale, not giving your children the perfect amount of vegetables every day, not having the perfectly clean household, right? We deal with this idea of perfectionist because we attach our worth to this idea of what we believe are the other people's expectations of us. But why does that matter, right? And you don't want to raise your child like that. You don't want to raise your child like that, right? You don't want to raise your child that when they do something, they are good and they deserve your love and affection. And then when they are bad, they need to deal with their emotions by themselves and they are bad kids. Because there are no bad kids. There is only, misguided behavior. It's age-appropriate behavior, that comes from their emotions and needs. And that needs parenting. They needs guidance. It does not need them to be shut down and feeling like they are the worst people alive because they didn't fulfill other people's expectations, in this case yours. Because this will go on and they will always then try and be people-pleasing others. They will always feel like they are not good enough. Emotional suppression leads to mental health issues. As I said, either you bottle it up and you have all inside of you and you implode, depression, anxiety, all those things, or you explode. And when they become teenagers, they will do things that will be much harder then to deal with, right? Because they need to, then suddenly they rebel, right? They let it out. And you don't want that. And also, it's really important that children, and again, I explained in ages 3 to 6, this is when children are learning, they are testing boundaries, they are learning about independency. And it's really important that you teach them decision-making skills, that you allow them to make decisions, age-appropriate decisions, right? It's okay to let your child decide what to eat for lunch one day. It's okay again, you give your child choices that are all okay for you, right? But you let your child have power. This is really important because when you don't give power to your child, first of all, you might cause power struggles. But if you have fear-based parenting where you're not giving your child power, and your child feels this need for power, feels this need to test limits, because again, it's an age-appropriate thing at this age, and you don't let them, again, they either implode or explode. And that's not what you want, right? You want to teach your child how to impose boundaries. You want to teach your child how to make their own decisions. You need to teach your child, that it's okay to say no sometimes, because it is, because you are not the leader of your household. You are a parent and it's your job to guide your child. Does this mean that you should let your child do whatever they want? Of course not. It's not about that. Positive parenting is both kind and firm. It's both things, right? So what you need to do is to help your child go through their emotions, their feelings, their wants, their desires in a way that is appropriate, that is healthy, and that fosters their healthy development. So you teach your child, you did this, instead of saying this is wrong behavior, don't do this, you first connect with them, help them self-regulate. Once you have their emotions regulated, that's when you can access the rational part of their brain, and that's when you can then correct the behavior. If you want to know how to do this step by step, teach your child, deal with the behavior, not just in the moment, correct the behavior, not just in the moment, but actually give your child life skills that will help them throughout their whole life. Check out changingparenting.com.